You're talking to Sid Vicious, 3-time WCW World Champion, 2-time WWF World Champion, and I am the master and the ruler of the world, and watch Hannibal TV.
We are back with 2-time WWE and 2-time WCW World Champion Psycho Sid Vicious here. And this is a part 2 interview. If you want to watch our part 1, it's up for free on the Hannibal TV's YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. So with this interview, Sid, I'm not going to go in chronological order. I'm going to ask you questions from all over the place.
Sure. Actually, it's 3-time world champion in WCW. A lot of people forget about one. And it was my most one I remember the most. The one I had the most fun is where I was world champion for like 30 seconds. Do you remember that?
If you refresh my memory,
okay, it was Halloween Havoc. I was working with Sting.
Oh yes.
Okay, what happened on that Devin back in those at that time in the business, it was only 4 pay-per-views a year. So they come to me. Odie was a booker at the time. Says, "Hey, said from every interview here on out, you say that you're going to be the next world champion." And so I was doing that. And people like Ric Flair would come to me and say, hey, "No, you're not supposed to say you're going to be world champion, because if you're not world champion as a heel, that's really bad for you." So I said, "Well, I'm only doing what they're telling me to say." So to have the match. Long story short, he says, "Okay, get your heat on Sting. Stop him during his comeback. Take him UIC Pavilion Center in Chicago, and that was a university or something." He says it was like the old sportatorium. Had a door that everybody came in and out. He says, "Take him through the door. He'll come back through the door, come into the ring. After you get back, he'll be like favoring his head, and you act like don't worry about it. You just roll him up, pin him, 1, 2, 3, you're the champ." Well, all that took place, and that's again only 4 pay-per-views a year. But Barry Windham had taken a little time off during that time and lost a little weight. Comes in, I see him, it's Barry, and I go, "Barry?" He goes, "Yeah, just roll me up, don't worry about it." So I rolled him up. And I'm thinking to myself, because no one even told me that, not earlier that night or nothing. So I figured they'll say that Sid cheated or something happened. Well, I had the belt, and I had the belt raising it, probably looking at the fans, and another referee came in and was grabbing the belt from me, and I heard the fans go crazy. I looked in, Sting's in the ring. He goes, "Take the Stinger Splash, 1, 2, 3." So they took the belt from me, and I took the Stinger Splash. And that never was explained to me. I never didn't ask any questions. So I don't know why that happened. Now, I think some people have said that, one, Odie was pretty much on his way out, and it looked like he was trying to damage everything for the next booker. It would be hard to put the pieces together, and I don't know if that was part of that or what happened, but I was actually 3 times.
How did you like Barry Windham? We actually interviewed him in January, and he's gained a lot of weight in recent years, I guess.
Barry was okay. I don't know. We were all part of the 4 Horsemen there for a little short time together. Hard to describe Barry Windham. It's sort of like always missing a lot, but all of a sudden you wouldn't know where he was, or somebody had some weird story that he met some woman and she was something, and he moved off, and all of a sudden he showed back up to work, like work, like he had never been missing, but he'd just be missing from work for a large amount of time to show back up. I think he was a pretty good worker, but just pretty quiet, nothing special.
Andre the Giant was still around WWE a little bit here and there in the early 90s. Did you ever meet him?
I did. It was sort of a scary deal, I guess he saw me one night nip up. I was able to nip up, from the ground. And he saw me do that one night, and he came to me, and he was, in the back, like always, drinking wine and playing cards. He comes to me, he says, "I want you tonight, go to the ring." No, this is when I was also jumping from the floor to the apron. He says, "Jump from the floor to the apron, grab the ropes, and then just flip over into the ring." And I was thinking, I said, "Hold on, man, this is live TV. You're told not to take any chances," and I didn't think I could flip if I wanted to, so I didn't do it. And he was like the first person to meet me on the way back in. He goes, "I thought I told you to do that." And I was like, "Well, sir, I didn't know how to do it," but that was really my only experience with Andre.
So he was nice to you from that conversation?
Yeah, really nice guy.
Now, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a video that someone's posted on the internet of Bam Bam Bigelow before he died. He said that he had his first match with you and he kicked you and you shit yourself, and that doesn't seem like something that would have happened, so I'm just wondering what your response would be to that video.
No, that never happened. I don't, honestly. He said he had his first match with me.
No, he said you had your very first match with him, and it stuck out to him because he claimed that occurred.
Now, this is what's weird. I've heard that the Undertaker said that I had shit my pants in a match with him. The thing is, we'll make this clear. I've never shit my pants with anyone.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember ever working with Bam Bam. I mean, I worked with him quite, a few times in the WWF, but as far as like when we first started, I was doing that Lord Humongous character down in Memphis, and he was Bam Bam Bigelow, but we never even worked in the same.
Yeah, he said some other things in shoot interviews that weren't true, that I know for a fact aren't true, so I figured that was some jealousy, perhaps.
I wouldn't think it's jealousy. I'll tell you a thing about Bam Bam, and I've always said this about Bam Bam, and I'll still say it today. I think he was one of the smarter, as far as psychology in the ring, he was one of the best there was, as far as like being in a different town, know how to react or get the people to react. A funny story about Bam Bam, when I was on the whipping post in the WWF at one time, it's like, you're getting beaten. This is when I was having to work with, people I didn't think I should be putting over. But again, I'd left Vince. I'd gotten to the deal with Arn. Really didn't have a place to go. So I had to sort of put up with some things. And then they put this stigma on me that I couldn't take a turnbuckle. And this goes to Carl Willett, Pierre. We were in England, and it said that I couldn't take a turnbuckle. So, and the thing was, truly, I wasn't taking great turnbuckles anymore because I wasn't a type of person that took turnbuckles. And from that stint where I was Lord Humongous up to that point, I just really, nobody was sending me into taking great turnbuckles. So Carl went over with me at the Royal Albert Hall there in England, showed me how to take one correctly, and it was just coincidentally, it was in a match against Bigelow. So we did, I'll never forget the spot, it was I took the turnbuckle, came out of it, and then he gave me a clothesline over the floor, and then we had that tour, the best matches on the card every night, and that stigma was lifted and taken off of me because of that right there, and that's how we hear about how things like that can get put on a person, and like the softball thing was with me, but no, not anything like that with Scotty. We always had good matches together. He always worked real hard with me. I like working with him. People like Vader, they were just workhorses, and when you got an opportunity to work with a workhorse, made it fun.
And speaking of softball, I've heard that you were actually discovered by Jerry Lawler at a softball game.
Yeah, but it was, we'd known each other, playing softball together, and I think what had happened, I'm not 100% sure, somebody, I think, that was going to come in for like a 2 or 3 week run as a, special attraction in the Memphis territory. I heard it was Terry Funk, but for some reason they didn't show up. He saw me at a softball game, asked me if I'd be interested in doing a little wrestling. He's the one that gave me the Lord Humongous costume at the time. I had made one later on myself, one that was a little better looking, but he's the one who put that on me, and I think I worked like 3 weeks in the territory where I worked Memphis, the Louisville, Evansville thing a couple times, and I guess when the deal was over, who that was intended for, I didn't get released, but didn't do any more shots for him. Then I got picked up subsequently, luckily for me, by Continental with the same character, Lord Humongous. That's why I made my own costume, and that's how I started the Lord Humongous character. How
did you get along with Lawler over the years?
I get along with him great, man. He was always really nice to me. Very professional, treated me as well as anyone ever treated me in the business. Things you'd want to happen for you. He kept me really strong. My character always gave me great advice. Always helped me. Never did anything to try to set me back.
What are your thoughts on his son Brian Christopher recently passing away?
I think that's one that it still bothers me today. Thinking about it after it's happened, I sit back and think of a lot of things about Brian. One, we forget, Brian was a really hard worker. He worked really hard to do well in his matches at night. And when we were working the Memphis territory, I was working the Memphis territory because I was, again, on the whipping post for Vince, and it was after the deal with Arn. So I worked the Memphis territory for about a year until I got asked back to the WWF. But I remember this is what it was. We still working the kayfabe deals, but I'd have people in my vehicle, he'd have people in his vehicle, and we were racing to get to an exit to get what we thought we were doing something cool. We were getting chocolate milk with donuts, and it said, fat free. All it was skim milk in your chocolate donuts. But that's what we were actually. That's what I remember. There were no drugs involved. There was nothing but Brian trying to sell his 8x10s, his T-shirts, and again, I'd smoke a joint. Brian had no. And part of it, and we're just running to get our donuts and chocolate milk. So then, when you hear something like this happening, it just still it really bothers me at this moment. Even thinking about Brian, I think of Brian as almost like a little brother figure. He was always never gave me any crap ever. Just again. I can only every time I think about it, I'm still in shock over the whole thing because he was a really lot of fun to be around, and I didn't see the bad things everybody else saw.
And speaking of the weed, have you heard that later this month it's going to be legal in Canada? It's actually going to be fully legal.
No, I didn't hear that.
They're changing the laws. Could you talk about your broken leg incident in WCW and why you went off the rope that night when it wasn't a common thing for you to do?
Well, what it was is, really what the deal was, I had shoulder surgery, and I didn't want people to know that I still really was having a hard time, like just putting my belt on. And things like that, and then it was really affecting me in my workouts, and I was having a hard time getting back to work from it. And I'm not really totally accurate about this, but I don't even think I was really medically cleared at that point to even come back. They said, "Hey, we need you. We need somebody on the show this night." And so I just came back to do what I could, like we all do. And when Johnny asked me to go up on the rope to do that, I first just told him, "Hey, I don't do that, stuff off the rope," and trying not to tell the truth that, hey, my shoulder's still hurting. And finally, I just said, "Hey, man, I'm not comfortable with it." And he said, "Well, hey, we've already got it written in, and the truck," meaning the camera people, know that that's the spot for the mystery partner to come out. And the mystery partner, of course, was his brother. And of course, he never really showed up because it broke my leg before he got there. But it was something I did want to do, something I wasn't comfortable doing, and I probably wouldn't have been comfortable doing it if I had 4 good arms. I'm not somebody flying off the top rope, And then Scott Steiner always, I think, in my opinion, took one of the best boots out of the corner that anybody ever took. You didn't need to jump off the rope. Scott did a tremendous job of making that look good, and I think it was just someone trying hard to impress the company.
How did you like working with the Steiners when you were teaming with Danny Spivey?
It was just, those days for me were, again, I was, like a baby, a kid. It was just having fun. It was, and back in those days too, you got to remember you had the Steiners, you had me, you had Vader, Stan Hansen, Dr. Death. It just goes on and on. So everything was real physical. So it wasn't like it was any more physical or less physical, but it was just good physical, a lot of fun. I was in the learning deal. I was put with Danny. It was pretty much said, "We're going to put you with Danny till you learn to be a singles," because that's what my future was going to be.
Now, he later played the role of Waylon Mercy in WWE. Why do you think after that huge build-up, it was pretty short-lived?
For him?
Yeah.
Well, Waylon Mercy gimmick, of course, we all know that's a gimmick Vince had been trying to get over for a long time. And then the latest version,
Danny Spivey?
No, the latest version was
I haven't watched
Bray Wyatt.
Oh yeah, Bray Wyatt. Yeah.
Bray Wyatt. That is the version. That's the version Vince was looking for. And I tell you, what was happening there is this. I've said this a million times. This is when people weren't getting paid, and then of course they were. And Danny was, I think, having a tougher time at that point physically, and he was the type of guy, he wasn't going to put up with any shit from no one. And we were in Winnipeg, I think I'm 100% sure on that, and we were having breakfast, and he said, "Sid, I want you to give me a ride to the airport." I said, "Why?" I said, "I'm going home." And I did. I gave him a ride to the airport, and he went home.
Now, you were part of the Four Horsemen for a while. What did you think of being part of that group at the time?
Well, at that time, again, I was pretty new to the business. I thought that was a heck of a cool thing to be a part of that. Of all the people that had been a part of it before, it was something that was over. I was like automatically over because of that. Hey, you're one of the Four Horsemen. It was, to me, it was a lot of fun.
And there was an incident during that time where you had a little battle with Robocop. Mm-hmm. That's now a popular video on the internet. What are your thoughts on the Robocop movie Robot? I think it was at Capital Combat.
Yeah, it was at the Cap Center, I think, or it was in Washington, D.C. I don't remember having a feud with him.
No, I don't mean a feud, but like you had to act like you were afraid of him.
Yeah. Well, what I really remember the most about it, my oldest son, Frank, who the one was on the show Big Brother, he was like 4 or 5 years old, and that was really the only wrestling event he went to because he wanted to see Robocop. Thing about it was he was almost as tall as Robocop because the guy Robocop was pretty short. Okay. But I thought, honestly, again, it was a really cool thing for WCW to have something like that, and I think that's what the purpose was, is for WCW to show that we're being like WWF. We're bringing the showbiz to wrestling.
Now, Lex Luger, a lot of people have varying opinions on him. What have your thoughts been on him throughout the years?
I think my thoughts on him has always been the same. Lex, he was a hard worker as far as, did a lot of things in and out of the ring to make him who he was. He worked hard in the gym. Always, worked real professionally at the rings and stuff. My opinion, I think he was a little robotic. That kept him from, but he was as good a spot as anybody ever been in the business. He was real honest about, he didn't really care for the fans. He didn't really care for a lot of people, probably didn't care for me. He just really liked himself, and he was upfront about that. So when someone's like that and upfront about it, you don't have a problem with it. It'd be when they're saying, "Hey, I'm one of the boys," and you're not one of the boys. And Lex, like myself sometimes, rode by himself.
Is that why you think the Lex Express whole gimmick didn't really get as popular as it could have, because he didn't have that passion towards the fans and just...
No, I don't think that would stop a gimmick from. I don't think that would stop. I don't think the fans could really, say that Lex didn't like the fans. I just think that was a stupid deal. And then too, not only was it stupid, I think even Lex think it was stupid. And I think all the boys hated wearing those Lex Express things on their wrists. But again, too, like we were talking earlier today at lunch, that's the beginning of the WBF. Okay, and if you remember, I can't remember, maybe you can correct me. I think, talking to Lex, I think Lex really wanted to be more of the WBF. He wanted to be more of a bodybuilder than he did the wrestling at that time.
Yeah, I think he was initially signed to the WBF because he had the no-compete clause with WCW, so he couldn't even wrestle for a year, but then he had that accident. So,
the accident too. Yeah. But
that derailed the WBF, and I think it was already out of business by the time he was.
Yeah, and then too, that whole thing, I just think, again, it was bad timing. He really came in when the business was really on a downhill skid, and then Vince had taken those other business ventures, and everybody was playing so hard trying to play catch up, and then I just think that was a horrible gimmick.
And you were friends with Eddie Gilbert. Can you just give us your thoughts on him?
Eddie was one of the greatest guys a real innovator in the business. Really loved the business passionately. I'll tell you one thing about him. He's one of maybe underrated, or people didn't talk about it as a wrestling ability enough. And I've told this story a bunch of times. Jerry Stubbs, who's to me a nice enough guy, his wrestling character was Mr. Olympia, wore the mask, which we know is a horrible, hard gimmick to work, especially as a babyface. But I saw Eddie Gilbert take him, and I'll never forget the town, Memoriam, Mississippi, which was a tough town, and it was like a 45-minute match. And within that 40-minute mark, man, those people were, you thought Mr. Olympia was Hulk Hogan. That's how great Eddie was. And then on top of that too, what I liked about Eddie, I thought he was smarter than a lot of other bookers, where he might, he had a lot of reason probably to dislike a lot of people that was in WCW when he was booking. I'm sure a lot of people were saying things about it behind his back or stuff, but that never stopped him from using people. Even if he didn't like, if he thought you had something to offer the business, which you don't see that very much in the business, people let their egos take it control and don't make the right decisions. And he was just, again, he was really instrumental in my career. He came in Continental when I was Lord Humongous just starting, really gave me some really great ideas then. And then after I lost my job, actually I was in Japan and was working the Memphis territory, and Eddie had come through Memphis and WCW and was telling a guy named Ken Wayne he was looking for me to give me a tryout. Well, the Memphis Wrestling heard about that, and they cut my money knowing that I was going to quit. So I was without a job for a couple of weeks, and the Japan office was really upset with me because I didn't have a place to come take pictures. And all of a sudden I got a phone call. I didn't have a phone. It came through my father-in-law's business at his car lot, and it was Eddie. I remember getting the phone and says, "Man, kid, how about a tryout?" I said, "Shoot, yeah." And then the rest is history. So Eddie is probably responsible for my career as anybody was.
A lot of people wanted me to ask you, we went into the whole details of the Arn Anderson incident. We won't get into that again. But a lot of people wanted me to ask you how it's been with him since. Do you guys just act cordial?
Yeah, after the deal, when I got brought back to WCW, I was in a room, they brought him in and said, "Okay, Arn, Sid's back," and they said, "If you guys have, said anything to say," I just said, like I said 1,000 times, I said, "Arn, I'm sorry that it happened, especially with you," because Arn had always stuck his hand out to help me with my interviews when it's a tough thing doing interviews when you don't know how to do them. He showed me how to start off and got me rolling on it, and just again, I hated it had been Arn that happened with.
And your feud with El Gigante in WCW, how did you like those matches?
Honestly, those matches were me to get out of there to go to WWF.
Okay.
And I was told to Vince says, do whatever they ask you just to get out of your contract and come here. And actually those matches were to put me over. I was going to have him, they were going to stretcher him out. But when I had decided to leave, they changed their mind.
How were your dealings with The Undertaker overall throughout the years?
They were always easy, good. Mark was always very business, and we were good friends rode together quite a bit, knew each other in Memphis a little bit, and then in WCW hung out a little bit, because he actually took my place as a skyscraper when I had my lung surgery. Then when I came back, Danny sort of wasn't around anymore, and me and Mark sort of rode together, a little bit, and hung out together, and knew each other from then to now, and just always really good guy, and I couldn't say anything bad about him.
Now, I recently watched your WCW match with Vader, which was who has the best powerbomb. That was how it was built, and you won that match with a choke slam. So I was wondering why there was no actual powerbomb in that match. Was that an office decision?
Yeah, if office decision, whatever. I couldn't probably powerbomb Vader if he helped me. It was weird. I went to WWF for the first time. Jock Rougeau, they were having me like just come to TVs and just announce that, like have someone like say, Jock, go out to the ring, go, I'm the baddest dude or whatever, anybody back there want me, come and get me. They'd have me come down, powerbomb guy. Well, then after a couple of nights of that, Jock said, hey, can you do something that says powerbomb? I said, that's my finish, man. He just didn't want to do it. So I don't know if he went to someone else, but then Pat and them come to me and go, well, tonight we want you to powerbomb Earthquake and Typhoon. I said, I can't get my arms around those guys. Same thing with Vader. I couldn't have powerbombed him.
And what are your thoughts on his passing?
Man, I hated it. Again, you know, Leon, we all know he was a little bit of a spot picker, but he was a harmless spot picker. He never hurt anybody. You know, again, just a super nice guy. One of the guys I enjoyed working with as much as anyone, him like Bigelow, workhorses, just gave everything they had every night. Reminded you that also Vader would remind you how good he was too. But again, just a really great guy. Enjoyed being with him, laughing with him. And when I think about it, it really saddens me that he's not here.
Now, I'm not asking this because I have anything against Vader. I know you like him. But we interviewed him, and he also did a great interview with us. But I watched an interview of him saying that you were originally one of the people considered for the Vader gimmick in Japan, and he didn't think that gimmick would have worked with you because he doesn't think you could have worked with the smaller guys as well as him. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. The thing is, I wouldn't. Now, of course, you and I talked about this earlier today at lunch. I was actually brought to Japan to take Bruiser Brody's place, and that's somebody I would have. It'd been easier. We're sort of the same height, sort of somewhat. I worked myself in sort of some of the same style that he had, but I never was told I was ever even thought about doing the Vader gimmick. But I don't think I couldn't have done it as good as Leon. And that just gimmicks are hard. And at that point, getting out of Lord Humongous, I don't know if I'd want to have gotten another gimmick. And that was even hard for him. That thing didn't work when it was supposed to. The cool stuff, the smoke and fire. So again, I'm glad I didn't get a chance to do that.
And Psycho Sid is probably more your real personality.
Yeah, well, of course, we know the reason they call me Psycho Sid is because of the stabbing with the iron.
Yeah, because that's a play on the Psycho.
Well, you know, to be honest with you, I don't know if I told you this before, but I didn't know that was my name that night. You know, Vince says, you know, actually I was working for the Memphis territory and, you know, tried to make a big secret out of it. He flew me in. We were up and doing a show in Evansville every Wednesday like we do, from Louisville to Evansville from Tuesday to Wednesday. And during that day I flew into the office and we sit there and talked about coming in and doing some stuff, and then back out that night. What was you asking me there again?
No, I even forget, but something about the Psycho Sid name.
Oh yeah, so they brought me back and asked me to do it, and I said, yeah, I'd like to come back. And so I think it's Macon, Georgia's our first TV, and I actually walked to the ring, and I don't even remember said what they called me, and don't remember the music and the lighting. From my understanding, was like the water in the shower from the girl getting stabbed. I didn't even know that. So when I come back to the dressing room, I'm the last one, and I usually am the last one to know that I'm getting ribbed. And some of the guys, forget who it was, they go, you know what just happened? I went, no. They said, you just did the shower scene of the Psycho movie. I went, oh shit. So it was sort of, I didn't even pick up on it myself.
Yeah, I didn't even realize the connection until you explained that. I'm sure a lot of fans would be the same. What did you think of the Sid Justice name when they gave you Sid Justice?
You know, I actually told Vince, you know, because I consider myself a little bit like John Wayne. That's why I wore all black, Johnny Cash and John Wayne. But I didn't like it. You know, there's a word for it, I can't remember. But, you know, there's times in the business when people will come up with things and not really have anything in store for after, you know, like when they did, let's use when I get heard about when they did Kevin Nash with Oz. You know, Dusty's idea was to do the deal with Oz because Turner owned the movie Wizard of Oz, but he had nothing to do, any ideas to go after that. It's sort of the same thing with Sid Justice. You know, they had the wearing like a pink cape, and pink tights or beige or something like that color.
I think it was baby blue.
Well, it was baby blue too, but at first they were actually, and I never wore it. Okay. It was a pink because I wouldn't wear it. I said, Vince, I said, Johnny Cash is rolling over in his, actually John Wayne was dead. I said, John Wayne's rolling in his grave right now. I don't think he knew what I was talking about. I said, I'm not wearing pink. It's just, I think the coincidence, I was wearing a really nice dress shirt a couple weeks prior to that when the seamstress person looked at me, and I guess with a good tan, it looked good, but and really the colored tights were, if you go back to, that was Dusty Rhodes' idea. He wanted to see me in colored tights, not just black, and I was wearing that singlet thing because of the scar on my side, and he wanted me also to get rid of that and go back just to the regular tights.
Okay.
So that was sort of Dusty's idea.
And it looked like you were going to have a feud with Big Bully Busick, who recently died.
What?
Oh yeah, he's dead. You didn't know he's died?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he's dead. But if you go online, you can see there was some angles at various events, but nothing really.
What happened? This was just totally the opposite, Devin. I was bringing him in. Like we all do, stupid things. When I made the decision to go from WCW to WWF, I sort of lied. Dusty did promise me that I could bring Bruno into the WCW, but he wouldn't be with me, but we'd just give him a job doing something. I always promised Bruno if I got a chance, I'd give him a job. So I sort of
That's Harvey Whippleman.
Harvey Whippleman. So I used that with Vince, but of course I was a baby face first. And so I said, now I knew Nick from the gym. Nick was a really world-class power lifter. He held totals all across the United States. I seen him bench press 700 pounds, so I knew he was really strong. And I didn't know he was a drinker, and that was his demise. But I got him a job with Bruno. And so what was happening was, like, they actually came to me and said, okay, Nick's not getting over, and he had missed a flight from drinking too much, I think, with Jim Neidhart one night. But it was a deal where he had to go down and work with Virgil, and they actually had Bobby Heenan's little girl in the audience with a balloon, and all he had to do is take the cigar and pop it, and he forgot to do all that, and he didn't get over and stuff like that. So the very next TV tapings, they had me working with him. I beat him, and I think he was gone after that.
Yeah, because they gave him a big build-up too, so it's good that I finally know the answer to that one.
Well, just because he just didn't know how to get over.
And you were paired with Harley Race for a while in WCW. How did you like having him as a manager?
I liked it. I really don't remember a lot about that. I do remember being with him a little bit. He was also with Vader, and I think when me and Vader were sort of doing our rubs together there, that's when Harley was. Yeah. Now, you got to realize, Harley, to me, was like my hero growing up. To me, I still think Harley still is one of the better workers that ever was. A lot smoother than Ric Flair, and things like that. So it was, that was awesome for me.
And you might be interested to know, a lot of people commented on our last interview that they think as you're getting older, you actually look a little bit like Harley Race.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was, a lot of people wrote that, surprisingly. Maybe it was the hair that you had that day.
Well, we both have curly hair.
Yeah. Now, did you ever work with Ted DiBiase?
Yeah, I did. One time. Of course, he was my manager for a little bit.
$1 million corporation.
Yeah, and what that whole thing there, Devin, was he was put on the road with me to see that I didn't get in any trouble. Right. And the deal was, really, the real deal was, I wasn't the one, I got into that one incident with Arn. That was the only time
I drank again.
Never drank, got in trouble. But really, you can ask Bob Holly this and Carl Willett. We did more babysitting on for Ted, because he was under the microscope for having affairs. And he was using that church deal, which I despise him doing that. He was charging churches to go meet with them, but
I believe he still does that.
Yeah, he still
him a fee.
Yeah, I can't do that. But we were actually stopping him, trying to keep him from drinking and getting with women that he was constantly. I never forget one night. This is after he'd already gotten in trouble. Yeah, we were in the bathroom at some club, and I heard I couldn't. He didn't know I was in. He goes, I surely thought Ted DiBiase could get better looking women than that. He was some ugly girl, but he did that even after he got caught. So he was still trying to get ugly women. There was a promoter that had one of those, remember, billiard shops up in Buffalo, and I think he screwed everybody over just about. But that's when I first heard it. He goes, Ted DiBiase tells me to get him hooked up with all these churches, and so I do. And he goes, I get him here. He goes, well, how much I'm getting paid? And that's something I could never do. I could never, ever charge a church for something. I mean, I'm giving my money to the churches. I'm not taking money from them. What was his name? Buddy Landell did that for a while too. But it's funny how all these guys get into religion when they, I don't know, at the end of the careers. It's just, it'd be great if one of them seemed sincere. But again, we were saying, again, I can't imagine asking money for church. They need money. They're trying to do good things,
Now, you were in ECW for a time, and I guess you were hanging out with Rob Van Dam there. There's some clips on the internet of him talking positively about that. What are your memories of working for ECW?
It was a lot of fun. That I think really what they did with me there, I don't know. I think ECW in general didn't want the guys to get over as much as they wanted the territory itself, the name ECW, to get over. So they didn't really let me do interviews and stuff. But I just came down and squashed people and stuff like that. I do believe Paul was advertising me in shows knowing that I wasn't going to be there purposely to try to make money. And matter of fact, when he had wrote us, me and Tommy Rogers, a hot check, I was doing an independent show up there in New York for, I think, in that area for Michael Bryan. We went to where their shows was. We walked in when the show was going on. Paul was really shocked that I showed up, and he was trying to keep me from the public seeing me because he didn't want me to. I think he actually, had doing that before, booked me on towns that he didn't ask me to do. Was embarrassed about that, so we went there to get our money, make him write us new checks.
Now, for Austin, you were with him a bit in WCW. I don't think you worked with him, but you would have known him. And then Backstage again in WWF. What are your thoughts on him?
I think he's another typical person in the business that worked real hard. Worked himself from the bottom wherever he was and worked himself to a good spot and did really well for himself.
And you've told us before there's a bit of jealousy with Hogan during your first WWE run, but later in WCW you teamed with him a few times. Was that same jealousy there then, or was it all cool by the time WCW happened?
I think it was all cool. I think Hogan had a really cool, or not cool, but had a way of being nice to you when you were there. And again, he never said anything negative to me. I never heard anybody say that he said anything negative about me, but, I don't know. When I was in WWF and pretty much it was understood I was taking his spot or there to, take over, I think Vince did him purposely in some bad ways to make him maybe he had done some things before I got there that deserved to be done the way he did. Like that. I think I told you about that night where in Albany, there was nobody. We were preconditioning the people for me to be the heel, not him. And they booed him during that Survivor Series, whatever. And I didn't see anywhere how Vince could have planned that to happen. That was just a spot where he tipped me over. And the people booed him. Well, he came back, and that's when that's the night I gave my notice to Vince. I said, he came in the hallway screaming, "Vince, you planned that?" Da, da, da. I went, "Hey, man." I went right in the dressing room. I said, "Vince," and at that time there were a lot of other reasons I wanted to leave. Nothing went the way it was supposed to go. I said, "Vince, man, I appreciate everything, but I said I just can't work in a place where a grown man cries, screams about stuff like that, So that's really why I gave my notice."
And you also worked with Randy Savage and WCW as a team a few times. Any thoughts on working with him?
It was always fun, Randy. Randy and I gets a little bit came from the same pattern. I remember, and then, Devin, this in the business, and I tell people this, you have to be an opportunist. I mean, sometimes you have to do things that maybe the other person doesn't like, and you got to figure out a way to get them to do it. Like, I ain't saying this, but you know what? I like sometimes slapping people in the face. So to do that, I just ask them if they say, yeah, I did it, you know. And so one night me and him were working with Dean Malenko, and maybe it was Chris Benoit, but one of that group of there. And this is when I was getting the count number up to go against Gilbert. So he says to me, he goes, Sid, do you mind taking a drop toe hold? I do a really good drop toe hold. I said, no, Dean, what we'll do is this. You'll come in the ring, I'll powerbomb you, I'll get a victory. Have the ref give another sign. Then I'll powerbomb you again, and we'll get another victory. And when we walked away from that, Savage said, man, I love that, man. You know, because sometimes you have to put people like that into place.
And overall, I know the smart marks really like him, but he was one of the most boring wrestlers to watch.
Oh my God, he was horrible.
No personality in his matches.
Well, what do you? I don't even think he had a match in WWF.
Yeah, they made him an agent pretty fast.
Said he was too short.
Well, now he'd probably be one of the taller ones.
Yeah.
Now, you worked with the Iron Sheik and Sergeant Slaughter just a tiny bit in WWE. Any memories of that?
Just that one night, what that whole thing was, what that was for was, you know, when I first went to the WWF, you know, I was only to do TVs and pay-per-views for 1 year, and after WrestleMania, go into my first house show. Well, it just seemed like my whole career was taking the Warrior spot. But that night they had me as the referee, knowing right after the match that that's where they were going to change things, you know, pretty much start fading Hogan out, put me in, and get rid of Warrior, because they fired Warrior as soon as he walked through the curtains. You know, because I guess he was trying to hold him up for more money or something.
And you told me that story earlier about Terry Taylor taking down the Iron Sheik. Why do you think he was so hated, and how was your relationship with him? Is it just because he was in positions of power sometimes?
No, he really never was in a position of power.
Agent, I guess.
Yeah, you know, an agent is not really power. It can be probably a boring job sometimes too. But he would take the agent job and make it like he did have power. He would create power, if that's the right way to put it. Taylor was just, I don't know, he just had always a weird way how to rubbing people the wrong way. And I could give you a million things with me, but I'll give you one where, you know, we're always trying to help friends get a job or something. Well, I was trying to help my best friend get in the company, and Kevin Sullivan had given me the office to get him a job, and all Terry had to do is just go to see him, you know, lock up and see how to put his boots on, and he was going to have a job. So we get out there, and so Terry says, show me your base. And even I didn't know what he was talking about. Everybody around was, what he's talking about, lock up.
Okay, because I would say a base would be an amateur wrestling position.
Exactly. Well, we always wondered what he was talking about, and so what it did, it took my buddy from being able to start. Okay, well, let's take you to the power plant. You know, but Terry just had a way of just, I don't know, just rubbing everyone the wrong way.
Now, back to WCW for a minute. You wrestled Van Hammer, and he had a job for a long time, and I've seen a lot of his matches, and I've seen some of the worst matches of my life are with him, and I'm just wondering how you thought of working with him. Was he better by that time?
You know, with him, there was a funny deal. That was my first match back in WCW, coming from Vince, from WWF. And what we did there was I had Robert Fuller come in and portray, you know, the old Colonel Parker character that I'm bringing in the Elvis to wrestling. And we were using him just for that. And once I got, after that night, he was to go on with who he did manage with Harlem Heat, because I didn't want a manager and didn't need a manager. But I just wanted sort of be compared to Elvis. And then it would be a good comparison for him to go on to manage other people too, that he actually managed me for a minute. So the first match was against Van Hammer, and Bill Dundee, who you're fixing to interview him. You can ask him the story if he remembers. So we're sitting there, and Van Hammer is telling me all about all the stuff he's going to do, and bing, 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 bing. I said, no, dude, this is what we're going to do. He did his intro. I said, once I come in, I'm going to do this deal to you, kick you in the gut, power bomb you, and that's it. And he looked around, and Bill said, I guess that's what we're doing, mate. So, of course, I had Bill Watts' ear. Bill Watts was, I think at this time, was already out, and Ole's in, and Bill Watts, I think, probably brought Bill Dundee in. They had a relationship together. But again, I think Bill Dundee respected that too. He knew Van Hammer, his potential wasn't great, and you didn't give people like that a whole lot to go on.
Now, I heard a story on a podcast but you didn't go into detail about it. I guess Bret Hart drew a picture of the Brooklyn Brawler getting nailed by Pat Patterson. I guess Brawler was really offended by her.
Yeah, what it was, I don't know. It was. I know it was. I didn't see the picture, but it was a picture of supposedly, what they call the career carpet. I think it was a bear rug. It had Pat, Vince, Ultimate Warrior, and Steve Lombardi, and maybe someone else. I can't remember, but Hercules was me, him, and me, Hercules, and.
Paul Roma,
maybe, and then not probably was Bruno Harvey Whippleman, and then but I remember Steve was like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of Bret Hart and this and that, and Hercules, from my understanding, him and Lombardi was somewhat like first or second cousins or something. They were calling each other cousins, and finally Hercules just said, hey man, shut up, you ain't gonna do shit. There ain't no reason to do shit unless there's a reason, But yeah, he got really mad about that photo.
And it is quite a coincidence that Lombardi, I think, he was only just released a couple of years ago. He had a job for that.
Well, you know why he got released too?
No.
Well, he was, and I don't know how, because I don't know anything about the internet, but Steve was actually leaking, from my understanding, information during shows.
Oh, okay.
So that was had to be pretty serious to let him go.
What do you think about that rumor? Because Carl has given me his opinion on that.
On that old Steve?
Oh yeah, on the old Patterson. We've heard it about Paul Roma and Steve Lombardi.
Well, it's
not Paul Roma. Sorry, Jim Powers. Not Paul Roma.
Well, it's funny when you bring those names up. They all have a sort of a tie into that weird story you're talking about. I remember when I first went to WWF, I swear, man, I was like, something shocked me every day. I remember Ultimate Warrior and Kerry Von Erich, and I'm pretty sure Kerry wasn't involved in any of that, but Paul Roma was screaming, really loud at the Ultimate Warrior, going, hey, whatever he was saying, on that carpet with Vince and them, that's the only way. He was screaming stuff like that where everybody in the building could hear that. And so, I don't know. You like to think that that's not true, but I'm not trying to look for excuses to me, a dumb old boy from Arkansas, but I don't know. Just so many things it was strange about the whole thing.
I heard you say, and of course you never, had to be worried because you're huge and you had many options of places to work, but you said in another interview you felt uncomfortable around Pat Patterson a couple of times.
Well, one was this, and it was just, again, you don't, and the boys rib a lot, and you don't know who's joking or not joking. And then you heard these stories. I had heard the stories where, supposedly Pat would call Sean's room all night long or knock on his door trying to get him to concede or whatever. So my very first trip in the WWF was I was brought to the building by myself. I was dropped off there, and all I was there was just to understand, to see how they did TVs and how the WWF did their operation. Well, I ended up riding with back to the room that night with Pat, Vince, JJ, and Howard Finkel, and worked out with Vince that day. He had me picked up in a limo with him, and we went to the gym, worked out, went back to his room, took a shower, and went to the building. Well, we're all now having dinner, and Vince goes to the bathroom, and I think Vince is sitting across from me, and Pat's sitting over, and Pat leans over me and says, "What an ass on that guy." I was thinking, oh God, and then he goes, heard y'all had a really good workout today. I said, yeah, Pat, it was just a workout, So that was a little awkward there. So we get to the hotel. This is Canada when the lightning is going on. He says, hey, you want to come to our balcony and watch lightning tonight? I went, no, I don't want to watch lightning tonight. So he grabs me at the counter and says, I got the big son of a bitch in the waist up. So I really went around. I was like a real shoot, and I don't know chain wrestling. I really don't. But I learned it real quick. So I put my arm in and got around him and said, no, you don't have me either. I said, I'm going to my room. And I really was scared that night. And I don't think they were walking by my room, but I had convinced myself of that.
Yeah.
And again,
it could have been written.
It could just have been real. It probably was. But again, it was like, no, I don't want to watch lightning with you tonight,
And how things have changed now. First of all, Brett would have been fired for those blackboard drawings, and
yes,
nothing like that. I guess, was that before all the molestation allegations came out?
That was all same time.
Okay.
The drawings all related. But you're right about that, man. Any of that crap. Or that's one thing, and that's probably, it was just a rib. They know I'm married, and that wasn't going on. But now the other things that were prevalent, were like the things that I witnessed. Where we were overseas one time, and there were a group of young little boys sitting out from the hotel, and I asked somebody, I think I asked the warlord, what are these kids doing out here? He goes, the black ring announcer. What was his name?
Mel Phillips.
Mel Phillips says Mel's getting these kids tickets tonight, and for return he takes them to the room and plays with their feet. I go, what? So it's like, and I can tell you a million stories like that.
And that lawsuit, they ended up getting settlements. Like it never went to court. It was settled, but they were undisclosed settlements. But I believe that was in relation to Mel Phillips and Terry Garvin.
You're saying this, but I'm going to have to say this, because I'm going to say this in my book. This was a weird deal with Terry Garvin one time. I'd heard all these stories, and after seeing Paul Roma act out like he did, I started feeling like maybe some of this was true. Well, Lowell, Mass was a town, coming from Boston. If you didn't leave early, you'd probably be late because of the traffic. So me and Kerry Von Erich, who I was riding with at the time, and Paul Diamond, we got there early. I'd say about maybe an hour early. And I went into a little small locker room they have there at Lowell. And as I was coming in there, Terry Garvin and this little chubby guy, that enhancement guy we call Job Guys, black hair, I can't remember his name, but their clothes were all ruffled up, and of course I'm thinking the worst, but I'm not saying anything, so I put my stuff down and I sit there and I don't even look at the kid, and so then the kid just starts spilling his guts to me. He goes, hey man, I don't want to do this. I just want to be a wrestler. I just want to go home to my girlfriend. I don't have nothing to do with this, and so I said, dude, I'm not trying to be a jerk to you. I said, but you're never going to be successful in this business. You're not going to be me. You're not going to be Kerry Von Erich. You're not going to be a big star. So I said, go home and don't fucking ever come back. And he did.
And Pat Patterson had resigned through all of that. And now Patterson wasn't connected to the boys. There was an announcer that had made some allegations. It was Garvin and Phillips that had to do with the boys, and they were never brought back.
Right.
So working with DDP and WCW, how did you like that? Diamond Dallas Page, or maybe just being around him.
Yeah.
How he's become such a huge guru with this yoga
stuff. I like Dallas I guess as much as you could like someone just passing in the locker room. I think he's a little bit weird. I remember a trip with him one time. He was telling me how he sent this video into the WWF to try to get brought in, to where he was showing him in a Cadillac with a bunch of girls, and it showed him busting through the screen himself, going, "Hey, I'm Dallas Page, and bring me to the WWF." And I thought to myself, dude, they're never going to bring you in now. I just started, I don't know, I just think his way of doing things weren't the way I would do things.
And what was Nash like to work with? You had matches with him, I think, in both WWF and WCW.
He was easy to work with, just easy. He was really so laid back. He didn't really care. You weren't going to have your best match of your life with him, but he was easy to work with.
And what about Scott Hall?
Scott was good. He was really good. Did everything, took all bumps real well, was real giving to himself. He'd give you anything, you wanted. He always came up with things that would make you look good too, so he was a good guy to work with.
And you worked with Dr. Def Steve Williams in the UWF once. How was that match?
Really wasn't much of a match. Dr. Def too, I worked with him once there and once in WCW at a TV taping at New Orleans. It was just a TV match. It wasn't really that long. Not something. It wasn't a match you remember that stuck out and said that was a great match or nothing like that. I do remember at the UWF thing, he did a power bomb off the top rope with me, and we broke the ring.
Yeah, I can believe that.
I went to him and said, I tried to get out of that. He goes, "No, we'll be able to do it." And I went, "Oh, shit, I did it."
You mentioned you were riding with Kerry Von Erich. Was that during a period of time where he had gotten himself sober?
I don't know. I know he was working on it. I actually asked him one morning, I said, "Kerry," I said, not that I'm a lifesaver or anything, I said, "Man, would you like to go to Vince and talk to Vince and see if he might put you and I on the road together, and I'll help you whatever I can do to help you, get yourself straightened up a little bit." And of course, the night before he passes out in this food, and then that morning he said, "Sid, I've sobered up." So I said, "Okay,
Because he was apparently a really nice person.
He was one of the greatest human beings you ever met. Just a true gentleman. And
you've had lots of contact with Jim Cornette throughout the years. What's your relationship like with him?
I don't really have a relationship with him. For whatever reason, I hear that he doesn't like me. I think it stems back to the deal with Arn, from my understanding, but he didn't like me. I don't really like him. I think he's overrated as a manager, but I have no relationship with him.
What did you think about Vince Russo as a booker in WCW?
I like Vince Russo. When we met in WWF, did a few things together. He brought me, we did a little book article where we went to the original place where they had Cheers at. I just didn't think he was a great booker. And honestly, I told Bill Bush, I said, this looks purposely like a sabotage, but now, from my understanding, what him and Ed Ferrara's idea were, if they could show where they could really be creative enough to, say, start their own Cheers or their own Saturday Night Live. I think that's what their goal was. That's what that's what we were sort of being told. Of course, like Bill Bush had taken over at that time, sort of took over Eric Bishaw's place, and was sort of the new boss. But he came up to me and said, "Sid, we know some of these things are going to be difficult, but if you'll do them, maybe everyone else will do it too. So we're really depending on you to sort of do what they ask of you." Not that I wasn't, but this was the beginning of it. And they all knew that it was going to be different from what we would normally see. And they said, "Man, it'd really be nice," and I did, even though I didn't understand some of it, But it was difficult. But I like Vince Russo and I liked Ed Ferrara. They're really nice to me, but I don't think they were very good at what they did.
And I heard an interview where you said you wrote a lot of Colonel Parker's interviews at one time and you advised him on them. Is there any other wrestlers you did that with?
I helped him. I helped Harlem Heat out quite a bit in their interviews, stuff like that. And anyone else that needed help or asked help, but mainly those guys, because after coming out of WWF, I did learn some things, and I learned what we weren't doing right in WCW. And that was being, prepared sometimes. So with Colonel Robert, he was my idea So I wanted him to look good. So I helped him with some of his ideas and some of his interviews and things like that, because I wanted to show that I could do that. And by doing that, I actually I could have had a lot larger part if I wanted, but I was in the office with Ole when he was in, and also Bill Watts. Unfortunately, Bill Watts got fired before I got back in full time. But Bill asked me to be a part of the booking committee. And then,
wow.
Yeah, so I was, I spent as much time as I could in the office and would come up with ideas. Actually, that's how I got Colonel Parker and the Harlem Heat hired. I portrayed those characters in front of Ole, Dusty, and Jim Barnett. And then Jim Barnett and Dusty, and I think Ole, their concerns were if Robert could do the character as well as I was doing it.
Right, that was their original gimmick. They were Cole and something, and they came out in chains, right? And he was like I guess it was similar to a Southern.
Well, this is what the whole idea was, that Colonel Parker was supposed to be, this big flamboyant person, and how he got with the Harlem Heat was that, at that particular time, the governor of Louisiana was a big time gambler. This is a shoot, and he always owed a lot of money to, a lot of different things. He lost a lot of money on horse racing and stuff like that. So I came up with a little story that, during a bet that he lost a lot of money to Colonel Parker, and Colonel Parker, instead of wanting the money, says, hey, I proved myself being the greatest manager in wrestling because I brought Sid Vicious in, but I want to prove it with two people that were nobodies. So I want two people off death row. And that's why we brought him in like the jean shirts and the jean pants, and they had the numbers on like they were just coming out of prison. And the thing about Stevie, he actually had some really bad scars on his back, on his shoulder. And I wanted to use that to our advantage and say that's where, during prison, that the man beat him, the man being the guy in charge. And that was the whole reason for
Booker was in prison for real, right, at one point.
Was he?
I believe.
He could have been. I didn't know that.
He's turned his life around, and now he's a huge humanitarian. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But the main thing was this: is that Stevie then really looked at, and this is the thing is too. Was being taught this in the business. We didn't have real. They'd have a strap match usually to get out of a angle or something like that. So I said, we're going to start the strap match from the beginning. And these two guys, have been in jail for the last, how many years being strapped by the man. Now they're going to get their revenge on the man. They're going to strap everybody they see. Meaning that what happened is that they were strapping other people, and working the WCW at that particular time. Steiner's being one of the top tag teams. You're going to work with them or the Road Warriors or somebody like that. So at least when you got to a point like that, you could have a real gimmick match because these guys had been strapping people for some time. But Dusty didn't like it because that wasn't his idea, from my understanding, and the candidate said it was too racial. Now, to me, how can that be racial? These are two black guys strapping white people, and so then just a little bit, not an argument, just a battle of words between me and Dusty, where he wanted to call them Chi-Town Heat or something like that, and I said, I wanted to call them the Posse, but a movie had just came out called The Posse. I didn't want to copy that. Hindsight, I wish I would have. That would have been a better name for them. Yeah. And it's nothing wrong by copying people, and I just didn't know that at the time. So I said, we'll call them the Harlem Hellraisers. They were billing themselves already from Harlem. So in bickering back and forth, I succumbed to Harlem Heat versus he was wanting to call them Chi-Town Heat. Pretty much that was the Road Warriors deal. I said, that's the Road Warriors. So let's just call them. I said, they've been billing themselves from Harlem, so let's just call them Harlem Heat.
Now, you were in Ready to Rumble with David Arquette. What was your experience like in that movie, and what did you think about him becoming champion at one point?
I had, we all wanted to do a movie in this business. I think it was not what I thought it was doing movies. It wasn't as much fun. I didn't see the problem with making David Arquette the champ that everybody else did. I really didn't. I didn't see the downside of it like everybody did. The territory was already on its ass. I didn't think that was going to make it any worse, but I didn't think it was that bad of a deal. they'd already made a joke. At that time, Ed Ferrara and Vince Russo had made a joke out of everyone. So one more joke wasn't going to hurt.
Well, yeah, I think Vince Russo won the title and Bischoff possibly could have been champion. Because I know he pinned Bischoff to become champion. I don't know if Bischoff was the champion by that point, but
yeah,
it was meaningless.
It really was.
Did you hear Arquette is back wrestling now? Have you heard that?
No. With who?
Independence. Apparently, he wants to make his name for himself on the indies to try and get the respect back.
Well, that's good for him.
If he watches this clip, if I post it as an individual clip, would you ever be open to wrestling David Arquette in Great North Wrestling?
Sure, I'd work with you anytime.
What would you tell David Arquette right now?
I'd tell you what my finish is, Powerbomb. That's all they need to know. But no, meeting him there at the movie set, he was a really nice guy. But again, if he's getting in the business, I have all the hope that he does well.
Were you backstage that night when the Harrises or Ron Harris maybe attacked Shawn Michaels?
No, what it was, there was a tour in the States and there was a tour overseas, and I was over the tours overseas. Actually, that was the tour that we were talking about that I worked with Bam Bigelow that actually got me off the whipping post.
Okay. Where I
was able to take a turnbuckle enough to make the ring move, and we had such a match that no one could follow it, and sort of took some of that heat off of me. But no, I wasn't there. But it was I won't swear to this, but I think it was at the Madison Square Garden. And it was, what happened was, because Ron told me this word for word, and Don was there too, what it was is, this is again too, people don't realize it, this is no exaggeration. These guys, and including me, weren't getting paid for weeks and weeks upon time. Now, a lot of us, not everyone, some of us had money saved up to where we could make it on the road. And we did get paid, it just took a while to get paid. So what guys would do is they would take their draws, go home, put it into their debit or credit card account, and that would help them pay bills and be able to get back on the road next time. Well, what happened was, and they weren't the only ones that did it. Several people had to quit because they just couldn't afford to go on the road. So Shawn, who was like me, was getting paid pretty well, where those guys weren't, called them like pussies or something. Said, man, you guys are quitters, or said something to them. And then Ron choked him, grabbed him by the throat and knocked him up against the wall or something like that. I remember that happening, because that really bothered Kevin. Kevin was going to beat Don up, which that would have never happened. Don would have killed him.
Kevin was on the tour with you.
Yeah. They were, I think it was Ron that did that, not Don. Yeah, Ron Harris.
They look the same, so it can be confusing. They're from Nashville or something, aren't they?
Right.
From around here. What are your thoughts on Paige as the GM of SmackDown after all the controversies she's had?
I think that's the stupidest thing. But again, it goes to Devin of how the business is, and when the business is down like it is, they'll okay things like that for when you think this is the time you don't okay something like that, and that usually says to me that they're having a hard time business-wise. Is that again, after that, I would not I wouldn't have her on my show, or I would have fired her immediately. I don't know. We always hear things from a distance. I don't talk to anybody in there other than Harvey Wilpelman once in a while, Bruno, but we don't really talk wrestling that much. But you'll hear like through other people's that now the company's going in this direction. We're trying to direct ourselves towards children and that again, and that's why we're going to have heels and baby faces again. Or then the next week they're not going to have heels and baby faces anymore. But regardless what the deal is, you don't have something that gets that popular and then make them anything special on TV. I just disagree with that. I don't have nothing against her. I don't have anything against any man or woman that want to do things, but don't do it public like that. And then again, how bad was it? Was she just at home? No, she was actually at a live event. The video I saw was that.
The one I saw was with her getting double teamed or something.
Right. Well, one was...
There was two. I know there was...
There was 3 or 4. There was one of her with that guy, the white guy, filming one of the... what was the black guy's names?
From... Yeah, I know who you're talking about. No, he's with Kofi Kingston's group.
Yeah,
it's not Kofi Kingston though, but Xavier Woods.
Yeah, so it shows him actually having sex with her, with the other guy filming it. Then the other clip I saw was her having
one of the titles is in the NXT title or something.
Right, and then it shows her in a wrestling arena having sex with that guy that I think taking the picture of it, and the other clip was just her loosening herself up with the dildo and the anal, saying this is what I have to do to loosen myself. I think she even says that. This is how I loosen myself up before anal. And I'm thinking, and then you see her on, I saw her back on TV, and then I thought, okay, they're going to get rid of her. And then they announced she's got a retirement, and I figured that was their way out of it. And then when you see her back on there like that, I mean, the first thing I'm going to think is that it's one of those situations she's got something on someone. Like PBS, if Charlie Rose gets fired for hanging around his underwear, I mean, we know things have been worse than that in the wrestling business.
Well, allegedly, it might have something to do with, I guess, people are apparently hacking their phones. I don't know how it works, but because Charlotte Flair has naked pictures out there, Gail Kim, somehow people are supposedly hacking the videos. I don't know. They're
putting them out there. I don't know. First of all, just don't take a picture like that.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, if you get pictures like that, you do not make that person.
You better keep them secret. Keep it locked up somewhere.
Let them just do dark matches, but don't make them the GM of your show.
Because when you search her, all that stuff will pop up.
It pops up. Well, a guy said, I don't know anything about technology, but a guy that I know that runs Psycho City Promotions, and that guy named Eric sent that to my phone, and I don't have, I couldn't even believe I saw that, and I said, this is crazy. I just cannot believe that's happening.
What do you think of I guess X-Pac's done porn now, Sunny, China. What do you and Hogan's had a video out. I mean, that was also leaked or hidden.
Well, whatever you do once you get out of the business is your business. I don't think it matters anymore. I think X-Pac, I do remember him saying he did one and China did one and Sonny did one, but I mean, who cares?
Sonny did one long past her prime. I haven't seen it. That would probably be torturous to watch.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I've seen it for. I don't know if you've seen this. I know you don't follow wrestling, but it's pretty disgusting. But this is actually popular now. Like, there's a practice of I don't know if you've heard of this Joey Ryan guy, the dick grabbing stuff that's done on wrestling shows. Male wrestlers grab each other's nuts, and it's part of. It's accepted as normal, and some fans actually like it.
Now, you know what's weird about that, Devin? That's what my very first weeks in the business, that happened to me, where guys were grabbing my dick. But it was, I think this, it was old timers.
This is as a high spot where someone's holding it, or really bizarre stuff.
No, I haven't heard of that. But I mean, the old timers would scare, an old guy did it to me, Buddy Wayne. I'd come in the dressing room and he'd always grab my penis and go, man, if I was a girl, you'd be in me. I'm thinking, oh God, of course, that goes back with hearing all the stories that, that it wasn't just in the WWF, it was everywhere where you paid your dues one way or the other,
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting stuff.
So now it's like a high spot, I guess.
Yeah, but to me, it's then what if you have to wrestle a guy that does that in his high spot and you don't want your dick grabbed? Grab his dick. Does that become accepted practice?
I hope not.
Here's one that has over 100,000 views.
Now, who's selling the guy? It looks like the guy holding us.
I guess he's supposed to have like a super stick or
so, yeah.
I don't know, but
that you've seen the thing where the guys do this and everybody falls down. I'd rather see that than that. I don't want to see that.
Because if I had a family and I brought my kids to a show with that, I wouldn't.
I'd leave.
Exactly. So I thought you might think that, but it just worries me what the business is turning into, because to me that's softcore gay pornography.
Yes, exactly. It is.
I don't know, that's disturbing.
It is. Well, business gets disturbing.
And what are your thoughts on Sami Zayn? You've already told me off camera, but I thought it was so funny I may as well ask you on camera.
It's just, he's just got the weirdest personality. He's got the weirdest body language. He's like a slinky. And then now I guess they've turned him heel a little bit. Actually, I prefer him in that role a little bit more than as a babyface. He just was just over the top stupid.
And have your thoughts changed at all of the Asian guy now that I think he's been U.S. champion a few times? Last time you talked to us.
Nakamura?
Yes.
No, I haven't seen him actually since last time, maybe once. Again, I think, I'll go back, it's maybe a weird comparison with Phil LaFonce and Doug Furnace, when we were, before they came in as the Caribbean Express, we would go to our cars at nighttime and we'd hear the marks go, the Caribbean Express is coming in. And I go, who are these guys? And it was like, this is the first time that I actually heard people's name mentioned as I walk into the car. And then I said, who is this? This guy named Phil LaFonce and Doug Furnace. Well, I know Doug from Continental. So he's all of a sudden got great since I saw him, which he hadn't. And but there was this huge build-up for him. And then when they got there, they both didn't last very long because they really didn't get over. Same thing with Jacques Moore. You heard so much about him, but again, he's just like another take, just a flamboyant Japanese Michael Jackson.
And we've heard that last week it was all over the wrestling news that Raw hit an all-time low rating. I know you don't follow the internet, so you found that out from me. Do you think that has partly to do with the wrestlers that they're hiring now, or is it also the writers? Is it a combination of everything?
I haven't seen enough to blame the writers. And I said this months ago when I was seeing more of the show. The thing about the boys, we call them the guys there, the guys in the business today are maybe technically as sound as they've ever been in their wrestling ability and their mic skills. On a scale across the board, they're as equally as good as that's ever been in the business. So you have to point somewhat more towards the writers. And I'll give you an example. One of the horrible things I saw was that Kobe Kingston and those guys, what do they call themselves?
I know who you're talking about, but for some reason the name isn't.
With them, they were having a little bit of feud with the guys that were acting like they were from the black and white days.
Oh yeah, I forget Vaudevillians.
Vaudevillians, yeah. And then there was I think two other guys, but they used a cardboard box in the ring and it said this is a time machine. Now here it is; these guys are all working their tails off and all really pretty good workers, but it was that time machine that what made it look so stupid. So I think it's right now more on the writers than it would be the talent.
There's a rumor online, and I'm sure I already know the answer to this, but there's a rumor online that you had a pet squirrel at one point. Like, do you have any idea where that came from? Then apparently in WCW, this is a rumor.
No, I tell you what, I did have recently a pet duck. I had a duck that I got a private pond in my backyard that I fish out of, and the duck, I guess during the duck season, got wounded, and I fed it and brought it back to health, and it's recently flown away, and that's the only pet thing I've ever had other than a dog.
I heard in an interview you said that the people with the worst BO you encountered in Germany.
Germany overseas, and the worst was Austria.
Oh, really?
But everybody I've ever talked to, even I know a girl, she's done wrestling, she lived in Germany, and she agreed too. It's just Germany has got, you walk in the elevator and your eyes just start burning. But I remember walking to the arena in Austria, and it just knocked me down. The BO over there is just terrible.
And what are your thoughts on Dave Meltzer?
I never met the guy, never talked to him. I know from the beginning, like back in the day when I was Lord Humongous, this is why I don't know or never talked to him. Robert Fuller, who was the booker at the time, he says, "Sid, you ever read a kayfabe sheet?" I said, "No, I never have." He said, "Well, don't." There's a guy there, Dave Meltzer, he's really talking bad about you. He's saying you're the worst Lord Humongous has ever been. He says, "Trust me, you're going to be something that one day in this business, I wouldn't have hired you." He says, "But so don't read dirt sheets and don't worry about wrestling magazines and stuff like that for approval for yourself. You know, listen to your peers and like that." He goes, "And you'll know," he said, "if you ever read a dirt sheet, you'd know who's calling in, and you could almost tell by, you know, of course, I knew Bruno was reading them every day and calling in all the time, so I knew he was one of the people, but never would."
And what do you think about CM Punk's 2 UFC fights? I'm sure you probably heard about that.
I actually followed it, because I follow UFC.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it really quite. He would been a little bit better. You could understood it why he would wanted to be a fighter, but he was so bad. I mean, I don't know. You know yourself, David. I've met some guys in the locker room just in the last couple of months where, since the UFC is taking off now, some of the boys are saying they're doing that too on the side, or they did that before UFC, or they got a fight coming up. The guys aren't doing. They're making that up for the most part. But it's UFC is like, if you remember what I always related to, when you were in school or at like at lunch, if you were, didn't have, if they say the 10th grade or above, you didn't have PE. I mean, you didn't have recess, you had PE, or, your only time to relax would be after lunch. So that's when the fights would always happen. So, everybody ran to see the fight at lunch, but there's only 2 people fighting. Yeah. And there's not a lot of people want to fight. Yeah. And so that's what I see is that, these guys say they're going to do it. The boys say they're going to be in you have to tip your hat to him. He went out there and got beat up bad, and still tried it. So, I think, I only know this, and this is just guessing, that was sort of his way to. Now I heard that he had a bad falling out with the wrestling business. With WWF about something he was told he wasn't that good or something. I would have liked to, done that. I would have liked to have someone.
$500,000 to fight. I'm sure you would have.
Oh, is that what he got paid?
Yeah.
I would have done it for $250. But no, I would have loved to have the training of that. Of something like that. Being able to get in there and grind that out and stuff like that. That would have been fun. But I'm sure that if that's the case, they gave him that money. That was just something just to sell some tickets.
Yeah. And you were saying this at lunch, but more people are going to watch this by far. So would you be open if Bellator or some company that had some money wanted to bring you in for a gimmick fight that was fair, that you could train for? You would be open to something like that?
I would. This is the thing is, we talked about it the last 2 years. Instead of all this heavy weightlifting, I'm doing more like cardio, agility drills, and I found one of the most taxing things. And I boxed as a kid. Boxing is tough. It's standing there like this for 3 minutes is tough sometimes. So I've been doing that the last couple of years, boxing. And when you're out there and you get in there and you spar in a couple of sparring sessions, and even today, they'll try to match you up with somebody your age, have the many fights you've had or the same experience. But I can see that'd be fun to try.
How do you think Brock Lesnar is going to do? He's rumored to be fighting Daniel Cormier possibly in January.
This is what's funny about that. He, of course, he killed Frank Mir the second time. Then that Overeem really had his way with him because we were told that he had some type of that surgery, that deal. But then he really gave it to that Mark Hunt guy. It seems like he has a little more trouble with the guys that are better wrestlers. Like Frank Mir beat him because of the ankle lock or the leg lock. Yeah. But and then Mark Hunt had no wrestling skills, and he dominated that because of his wrestling skills. I think he's going to have a tough time with Daniel Cormier. And I think Cormier's an Olympic guy.
Well, and apparently Cormier trains with Velasquez in wrestling, and they're sparring partners. And apparently Cormier can beat Velasquez. And Velasquez got a first-round TKO on Lesnar too.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, because Lesnar, he actually had two first-round TKOs before the Mark Hunt, but that was supposedly when he was dealing with the health issues.
Also, he fought.
He fought twice before Mark, because he fought. I forget who he lost the title to. Do you remember?
He won it from Shane Carwin.
No, he won it. Yeah.
Won it from Randy Couture.
Yeah.
And then he beat Shane Carwin.
Shane Carwin, and he beat Frank Mir.
Yeah, I forgot who he
there
lost.
was two losses after that, but I know Overeem
Was
and
one.
Velasquez. Maybe Velasquez was the one that took the title. I don't know.
Could have been.
But
No, he's going to have a hard time with Daniel Cormier. I used to really like Daniel Cormier as a fan of the UFC. He's starting to rub me he's starting to become a heel to me now a little bit. So I like to see Brock beat him, because he's running his mouth a little bit. But
did you see the thing that they had in the octagon after the last fight?
no, I heard about it.
Okay.
But I'd like to see Brock win for sure for the boys. But I think you'll have a tough time with him.
And what do you think of Braun Strowman? He's I guess the guy that's most similar to you. I guess they would have on the roster.
I've seen him a few times. I think he just looks a lot of time out of place. I saw something that's been a long time ago, where it was a handicap match and they let the guys kick him in the ass. I just thought that was real stupid. I just don't see he's getting over. I don't know if there's any reason for him to get over. There's really nobody over there for him to work with, really. There's not another big guy. But I don't think he's getting over.
Did you see that incident that happened? I'm sure you probably didn't, but I guess in the Royal Rumble, he did a stiff knee to Lesnar, so Lesnar gave him a few legitimate shots in the face. And I thought it was interesting that he just took the shots, and this was replayed all over the place. But if he had actually fought back after Lesnar punched him in the face, he would have had nothing to lose.
Right.
Because no one would expect him to fight back. But it kind of disappointed me that he just took the two real shots from Lesnar.
And then did.
And it showed that he wasn't a real fighter in that way.
Oh, that happened. That really probably wasn't good for him.
Yeah.
Well,
that was even on Joe Rogan's podcast. They even replayed it on that.
Oh, really?
It made news everywhere because that doesn't happen usually, right?
So what he actually stiffed Lesnar?
I guess it was an accident. He kneed Lesnar in the face, and then Lesnar delivered a couple legitimate punches to him that actually knocked him backwards. But yeah.
Well, you hate that, but that's sort of the business, though. That if you stiff someone, and if you get that reputation, you're only, for Lesnar, his only recourse there was to do that. That's called a receipt.
Yeah. I just know if it had been me, but I would have at least tried to fight.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the last questions I'll just ask you about the guys I'm interviewing the next few days, because fans might be interested. Bill Dundee, what's your opinion of him?
Bill's, he come from the old days. The Carnies were, really, if you could stay in the ring with a guy back in those days, you'd get $50. Well, Bill's one of those guys that would break your arm. From my understanding, this is what Bruno told me. Bruno knows him real well. With me, again, my experience with him, like he was part of the booking team, or always, someone in charge. Always did really well, good things with me. I remember he put me on this thing one time and putting Vaseline all over me to really make me shine, to present me. This is when they were doing the joint thing with Global. So they, everything he ever did with me was positive. And then, seemed to have good head on the shoulders. Just a pretty good old boy.
And Kamala, I know you may have met him once on that big show I did the first time you wrestled for me. But,
yeah.
What are your thoughts on Kamala?
I think what I've heard, what I've met him, super, super nice guy. Just, a couple stories like I told you I heard were, like one of the last stories were, he gone, I think the town was Little Rock, and got there and Corey Macklin didn't have the money to pay him, and hey, James, we don't have the money tonight, and he's such a super nice guy. He just, shrugged it off and said, okay, super nice guy, from my understanding. I hate to hear about his health issues. That's always saddens me when somebody's having a tough time. What I have heard, though, about how the people responded to him is great to hear that. I talked to Kenny Casanova, who did his book and helped him out. I think the fans really got together and did the fundraiser where they could write the book, and then, from my understanding, it's done really well. So that right there, that right there. When we hear about fans sometimes and with the love the fans we have for and how much respect for them, that's all we do. I mean, those people do that. Like I told you about the little charities I have where at church we feed the homeless. We give them 2 cans of Viennas, a pack of crackers, a bottle of water. So I've got this little deal set up now where if people will call me, my phone numbers, or get in touch with Psycho Sid Promotions, if they send...
Psycho Sid Promotions is on Facebook?
Yeah, on Facebook. So if you get in contact with the guy Eric there, he contacts me. He actually gives these people my phone number. I call them and I talk to them, and I'll send them an 8x10 autograph, and they send, not to me, they send to my church their choice of a case of Vienna sausages or a case of waters. We have an orphanage in Haiti that we sponsored called St. Vincent's Orphanage, and the downside to it is everyone that's handicapped. So in Haiti, the country there, if you're handicapped, you're automatically almost discarded. So they have 200 children there that, if you see some of the pictures of the book I have, it's really hard, just tell you your heart part. They don't have anything, hardly food or water. So like right now, a lady down in Louisiana, she just donated 200 tubes of toothpaste and 200 toothbrushes. A guy named Joe out in Washington, I just talked to him on the phone. He's just a fan. I'm sending him a pair of trunks that I had to Sid Justice. I'm signing. He's sending me $100 worth of children vitamins to send, because in October is when Dr. Susan Nelson, one of the doctors that go over and help this, they go 4 times a year. So that's what we're concentrating right now is children vitamins and stuff like that to get to that. But then through all the rest of the time, when it's just that, I still same thing. I send a autographed picture or one of those little sport cards. I will send that as well, and they send. And I never ask how much. I say you can send a can, a case, or whatever you want, and so we have a few Viennas to give to the homeless.
And you give them the address. You don't know the address off by heart, do you?
Yeah, the address is 700 Poplar Avenue, St. Mary's Cathedral, and that's where we send everything to.
Okay. So anyone watching this, they can reach out to Psycho Sid Promotions and
talk with Eric, who runs it. He'll contact you with me, give you my phone number. We'll talk, and I'll give you the address to. I think the church is 700 Poplar Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee. I think it's 38. I don't want to get to that. I'll lie about that. But again, it's easy to get in touch with me.
And that's a pretty good deal, considering that a lot of wrestlers these days, and guys like Eric Bischoff and Bruce Pritchard, they are making fans buy shirts. They'll buy a shirt for $30, and then they'll get a call from them. So all you're saying is donate some food to a good cause. It's not even for your own financial benefit.
No.
And they'll get to talk to you and get an autographed picture. So that's pretty.
Yeah, and again, nothing comes to me. It goes straight to the church. And so again, then you have my phone number. You get to call me anytime you want.
I don't know if you want to say that.
Well, my phone's the phone number's public. Everybody's got my number. People call me all the time. But again, that's why I feel I don't want it ever sent to me. I want it sent to the church where it's going, where it's no question. I don't want to be a Ted DiBiase or a person like that that's taking money from churches.
And what do you think about Bruce Pritchard now that I brought up his name? I forgot to ask you about him.
Bruce, I've not seen any of his podcasts. Heard they're pretty cool and popular and stuff like that. Bruce was I don't know how to explain him. He was seemed to be a really nice guy. Has a funny voice and everything, and this is no knock to him or anyone like JR or anything like that. All those guys were pretty nice to me, but their job in the business was just a stooge. They were stooges for Vince. And yeah, man, yes, Vince, that sounds cool. Whereas Vince said, they said. Other than that, that's pretty much their job title. But saying that as well, they were really good to me, nice to me. So JR is one of the nicest people to me. I've met him WCW, WWF. Again, Bruce Pritchard was always super nice to me, and I knew his brother Tom down in Continental when I started down there. So again, just nothing bad to say other than they were really nice to me.
And Jerry Jarrett, we're interviewing him in a couple days. Any stories about him?
Jerry Jarrett's really another guy who's super nice to me, gave me always great compliments. You always go through things, meet people in life, and pick up something here or there that you might learn. One thing he taught me, and I still tell people this today. I told some guys on a show at World Class Revolution this past weekend I was on. I said, and I learned this, Lord Humongous, he said, Sid, when you think you're over-exaggerating, you're probably not exaggerating enough. And I think that's always good advice to give some people just getting in the business. So that was one bit of advice he gave me. It was good. So he never gave me bad advice.
And Tracy Smothers, I know he likes you a lot. Any thoughts on him?
He is just a super nice guy, man. Again, started off, me and him started in Memphis together, right where we are right now in Memphis. And just another good guy, man. Just honest, hard worker. Never cared about, never seen him jealous of anybody, just, worried about what he was doing for himself, and just another super nice guy. And someone, never, not a moment, not one crossword with each other the whole time we've known each other, just a super, super nice guy.
And I already asked you about this off camera, but I'm sure Carl will like it if I bring up his name on this. And what do you think of the success that Carl Ouellette has had lately? He's had kind of a resurgence at 50 or 51.
Well, when you brought me up for that show in Ottawa, he was working with that a legitimate strongman.
Yeah.
Think about this, and Carl too. He is a hard worker, and I'm really proud of what he's doing. I haven't seen it. Again, Eric Psycho Promotions keeps a close eye on, tells me that he's doing real good. I'm very proud of what he's doing. I think they missed the boat on Carl. He's not Hulk Hogan or Sid Vicious or anything like that, but he was a hell of a worker, had a lot to offer the business, and I still think he could do something.
No, his promo as Sid Vicious or Hulk Hogan would be pretty funny to hear, though.
Yeah, it would.
That accent.
Yeah, but I like Carl to death. He was always a good friend of mine and big supporter for me, and always helped me out. Like I said, I told you a story. Helped show me how to do that turnbuckle and got that shit off my shoulder. So a lot of guys wouldn't have bothered to have done that for you.
Did you get along with Bret Hart?
Yeah. Yeah, we got along good, and weren't best friends or anything, but we got along good in the dressing room always, stuff like that.
How would you say your relationship is with Vince McMahon now? If you guys were to see each other, would you guys still be friends? Or?
Well, we never were friends, but I'm sure we'd be just as cordial, as we would be back then. In the business, like even with Lawler, I said me and Lawler were much better friends than me and Vince. Me and Lawler would ride together sometimes and talk, and Lawler, I think, is a little bit nicer person. Now Vince is a businessman, and that's what we were, just business together, and we clashed sometimes. But other than that, he was as equally as good to me as he was equally as bad to me. So he did some really good things for me, and he gave me a job and gave me a job, helped support my family. So you always got to be grateful for that. I got royalty check today from the WWF, still getting that. So you can't be very mad at someone who's paying you. And he always paid. He wasn't the greatest payoff guy, but I always felt comfortable saying anything to him that I wanted to. He wouldn't say, "Hey, I'm Vince McMahon. Don't talk to me." But other than like, "Yes sir," "No sir," he was pretty equal like that.
I'm sure they are eventually going to put you in the Hall of Fame. I know you don't care too much about that.
Right.
But it just goes without saying they're going to have to put you in there. But do you still have interest in having a role with them as a manager or some type of role?
I would. Honestly, I think we talked a little bit about it. I would like to somehow, the reason, and I told you, and I said it on Sean Moody's podcast, why I'm a little reluctant to want to do the Hall of Fame, is that I really want to be able to say that I earned it. And with my injury, I think I came a little short of really saying, hey, I really solidified myself as one of the top 10 or 15 money drawers in the business. That to me is working. I can't do a backdrop, but I can draw money.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'd like to have been able to done. I still think today I could be a good manager. I don't know why. I love to be in a wheelchair. I love wheelchairs. I think that's great heat. But I would like to do something like that. And again, not wanting to be in the Hall of Fame is just really mostly feeling like I don't deserve it. I didn't really solidify myself. My career was cut a little short. And then when I had a chance to come back, Johnny Ace refused, did not want to talk to my attorney. I didn't want to talk because I'm pretty easily to start an argument. And actually started an argument with Johnny when he told me he didn't want to talk to my lawyer. I said, this is where I didn't want to get to. I didn't want to start arguing with you. I wanted this to be easier. So I feel like I was shorted there. I had still something left in the tank, and I didn't get a chance to do that.
And you just became a grandfather. Is everything going well with your family these days?
Everything's doing good. Now the baby was born a little early, about 7 weeks early, that's early. But he's he's got a little breathing tube and a feeder, but he was 4 pounds born, but he's like 21 inches. But he's a beautiful little baby boy, and my son's very happy. My daughter-in-law's very happy, and of course my wife is really happy. So that just really makes everything good.
And you have no legitimate social media, so other than Psycho Sid Promotions, it's someone faking it if anyone's online. Just to state that for the record.
But that's not me. I do talk.
Yeah.
I do talk to the guys. His name's Eric Wiggin or something like that, and we do have some of the same thoughts on the business. But he does everything. Sometimes I even ask him, Eric, don't write this. He goes, well, I have my own artistic view. I said, okay, do your artistic view. I don't care what you say, but that isn't me. But I do talk to Eric a lot. We do. I think we made fun of the time machine together at that time. I did say some of those things, but other than that, I don't get out there on that type of deal. I don't feel comfortable on that social media platform.
And to finish this off, could you do a little promo into the camera for us?
When the sun comes up, and the first thing you see is me, and the dust clears, you'll look up to me, and you'll say, Sid, you are the master, and you are the ruler,